Hey YouTube, today I'm going to do a video that was requested by a viewer, and I always try and do everything that people request if it's within my ability and I have one in my possession. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the Smith & Wesson 586 to a Korth 357 Magnum Mongoose. Now, before we get started, I'm going to let you know that all three of these revolvers have been safety checked and we are clear to make this video. As I pick them up, I will show you that there is nothing in them. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to take this Korth 357 and I'm going to show you some close-ups of it. This is a German-made 357 Magnum, and it was designed by a gentleman named Willie Korth. There's been a lot of controversy in the way that I say Korth, but that is the correct way to pronounce the word Korth in the German language. A lot of people call it Korth. I know some of the people at Nighthawk say Korth, but it is actually pronounced Korth. Now, some of the features of this gun is that it is hand fit and put together by a single gunsmith in Germany in the Korth factory, and it is imported by Nighthawk Customs, and you can see right here on the side it says Nighthawk Custom, and it has their little logo here on the side. Not many markings on them or anything, and some of the features of this thing is this is a two-piece barrel. So this is a hammer forged stainless steel barrel, and it has an outer sleeve on it that incorporates this vented rib here on top and this full underlug. And the way the Korth revolvers work is this is your cylinder release right here, this little button right here with this little red paint thing in the middle of it. But as you can see, as I push on the cylinder release, it's pushing on the ejector rod, and when it releases on the inside here, if you look at where my finger is, that's where it pushes. Now on this side, this is spring loaded, and this thing, as this cylinder closes, this thing locks into that ball and pushes this backwards and locks it into that little hole right here. When you release it, you push it forward and it pushes on this little ball. This is extended out here like here, and it pushes it like this and allows it to release. So this has actually got a little spring in it. As you can see, it's kind of a genius design. So it's a dual lockup area. But this revolver is one of the finest that's ever been produced across in the world. It's all hand fit. There's very well machined. It's got a crown barrel on it. There's no sharp edges or anything, and it takes about 70 to 80 man hours for them to produce one of these things. It's serrated on the top. It has adjustable sights for windage and elevations for target shooting. It has a very nice set of very smooth grips on them with their little logo right here on it. Very fine revolver. They are not cheap, folks, at all. These things are ridiculously expensive, but there's a ridiculous amount of work that goes into producing one of these things. So if you want to have the best, you have to pay for it. When there's a lot of man-hour labors involved in making something, that usually gets passed on to the consumer. Now, one of the unique features about a Korth revolver is that you can quickly remove the cylinder from it by pushing this little button right here on the side. So you release the cylinder here, you push down on this little button, and the cylinder slides out, and you can actually purchase a 9mm cylinder, quickly stick it in here, and you can shoot 9mm out of this revolver. It's a really neat design, and Korth has done that for years, even before Nighthawk was involved with them. I believe Nighthawk got involved in distributing these around 2016, and they have a bunch of different models. This is actually not a base model, it's a more of a higher end one. It's got like a little raised medallion thing here on the side that says Korth on it, and this little red thing that a lot of people don't seem to like that have viewed these videos. All that is coloring inside of it on the cylinder release. One complaint I have about them is the size of this hammer on it. It's just, if you're using this as a target revolver, which is what I would see this being used for, this is just if you want to shoot single action, it's just a little bit high of a stretch to grab this hammer, but it's not a deal breaker for me. So the action on this thing works real smooth on it, and the double action, it just cycles really smooth through. The single action is probably about around 3 pounds for the trigger. So what a gentleman requests is that I compare that to a 586, and I have a couple of them out here because I happen to own a 4-inch one and a 6-inch one. So this one here is a 586-4, and before I tell you anything else about these, both of these revolvers, the other one I'm going to show you, are identical in every respect except for the barrel length and the fact that this one is a round butt one. And I'll show you a little bit of the difference here when I pick up the other one. But this is a 586-4. This one was probably made in the early 90s, maybe the late 80s, or early 90s. And this is when Smith & Wesson started transitioning to the round butt. And this one's been fit with a set of combat grips. It came from the factory with rubber grips on them that were larger, about the size of the target stocks on them. Now, if you look at some of the features on this, this has what they call a combat style trigger, so it's smooth edge and it's a little thin. It's got a semi-target hammer on top here that's kind of like checkered on top. And this one seems to be a lot easier for me to reach my thumb forward on and pull back the hammer on it. It also has serrations on top for glare, and it has a red ramp on the front sight, and it has adjustable for windage and elevations on the sights also. It just has a little white outline on it. This is also a 6-shot revolver in 357 Magnum. You can shoot 38 specials out of each one of these. Now the 586s, I did a video showing it next to a 686. 586s are color case hardened, the hammer and the trigger. And as with all my Smith & Wesson revolvers, this one's had some action work done to it. So this action works really smooth. When you pull it back, it almost feels like a Colt Python. It works so smooth. And the trigger pull on this one is right around 2 pounds. I mean, it absolutely goes off. Now, this is where all the money is, folks. On this one, the double action on this thing is just absolutely like butter. All the internals have been polished on it. Springs have been changed out. It's been tuned to work this good. But this thing is amazing on it. Now with the Smith & Wesson, you push on this little cylinder release, and that's how you open the cylinder. Now if you look at Smith & Wessons from this time era, this is when they were at the top of their game, and they did a very good job putting these together. There's no mem parts or anything on the inside of them. Everything was absolutely forged hammers and forged frames, forged barrels, and everything like that, and it was all fit together by gunsmiths. Now they didn't do quite the time and effort like Colt did in this area, hand fitting them together, and that's why these actions lack a little bit when you buy them from the factory. But if you have a qualified gunsmith, a competent gunsmith, they can correct that and make it like this one is right now, and it's just unbelievable. So you see the close-ups of this thing. It just has the Smith & Wesson sign right here on the side. On these combat grips right here, it has the Smith & Wesson logo, and on the side here it says Smith & Wesson. On the other side it has where it was made, and it says Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum. But this is a really cool gun. Everybody knows that I like the 4-inch configuration better than the 6-inch ones, and also Smith & Wesson during this time had a firing pin mounted on the hammer. Now I'll pick this other one up here. This one's even older than the other one. I'll show you that it's not loaded. This is a 586 also, but this is in a 6-inch configuration. This is a no dash, so this is one of the very first ones that they came out with, and these were released in 1980. This was an L frame, which is a step up from the K frame and a step down from the N frame. So this is a mid-sized revolver, and this was actually developed so police agencies and stuff like that could shoot a steady diet of 357 Magnum through it without damaging the frame. And they have like a larger forcing cone area than the little K frames do. If you can see right here, it's a lot more beefier than the little K frames. But this one also has had some action work done, and it works equally as smooth as the one that I just showed you. The double action is just smooth all the way through, and the single action is about 2.5 pounds. This is a 6-inch version, and the difference is this is a square butt. So this one's outfitted with a larger walnut target grips on it. But all 586s were, when they came out, they were either made with blued carbon steel or nickel plated carbon steel. If it was a stainless gun, it would be the 686. So the reason I'm showing you two of them is you got the square butt and you have the round butt, and you can see the difference in the two. But other than that, these are virtually identical in action work and everything. They just did a couple minor changes, and every time Smith & Wesson does a change, they put a different dash in here. Now, to compare them to this Korth revolver, I don't think you can compare the machine work and the build quality on these things because of the amount of time and the hand picking, and one guy built it. I don't think they're going to be built. The Smith & Wesson's not going to be built as well, so it's going to be kind of unfair to do that. But in terms of how the action works on it, the Smith & Wessons work every bit as smooth because a gunsmith has gone in and done some polish work and stuff on this action work that makes it operate like this. If it was an out of the box comparison, it wouldn't even be close. The Korth would walk away with it, and that's just a simple fact of the attention they paid the detail and everything. But these are really these old Smith & Wessons is when they were at the top of their game, and if they'd spent just a little bit more time, they could have made this action work like this when it came from the factory. But then again, you would have had the, that would be passed on to the consumer, and the price would be a little bit more. So, it's give and take here, folks. You have to do what's important to you, and you can buy one, and they're just fine out of the box. And if you choose to have somebody do the action work to it, I mean, you pay a little bit of money and you have it done. A lot of people will shy away when they go into a store and they look for the cheapest thing, and Smith & Wesson knocked down the cost on them, and it's easily corrected. Smith & Wesson revolvers are not hard to work on if you are a qualified gunsmith. But anyway, if you're buying one of these Korth revolvers and you think you're going to go out and improve your groups just by buying a $4,000 to $5,000 revolver, it's not going to happen, folks. These guns are only as good as the user, and these are tools, and however skilled the person using the tool is how it's going to work. So don't think that you're going to go out and instantly become Jerry Mitchell by buying a more expensive revolver. All these revolvers are quality revolvers. It's just these have a little bit more time, effort, and skill put into them, and they pay a lot more attention to detail, and they pass that cost on to the consumer. One other thing I'm going to mention is a Korth revolver is more like a Smith & Wesson to me in feel and the way that it operates. If you look, the cylinder rotates counterclockwise, and if you pick one of these Smith & Wessons up, it also operates counterclockwise, and it's just a feel of it, like the size of the hammer and everything. They just feel very similar to a Smith & Wesson than they do a Colt. It looks more like a Colt because of this underlug and this ventilated rib, but it operates more like a Smith to me, and that's just my opinion. So, like I said, I'm doing this video just as a request from a viewer. He wanted to see a side-by-side comparison of a Smith & Wesson 586 versus a Korth Mongoose 357 Magnum. If you have any questions on any of these guns, I have separate videos that goes into depth on all of them, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much for watching my video today, folks, and you folks have a great day.